welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley and today I'm going to be talking about all the thriller books on my TBR. This is probably my final installment in this little mini series that I've been doing where I've been going over the books on my TBR in different genres. First I did it for all the romance books on my TBR, then I did it for all the horror books on my TBR, and now we're going to be talking about the thriller books that I have on my TBR. Out of all these videos, that still won't be totally inclusive of every single book on my TBR because I do have some nonfiction, some literary fiction, some random things sprinkled in here and there, but I don't really have enough of any other genre to do another genre haul, so maybe I'll do like a miscellaneous, but this will probably be the last installment, at least for a while, until my TBR renews and is full of a lot of new books. But let's not waste any more time. Let's hop right on into the thriller books, and I'm going to be starting with the ones that are on the top of my TBR because I do sit my books in two different places. I have this bookshelf behind me, which is like a lot of my books. Some of them are read, most of them are unread books, but then I have a separate shelf where I sit my very next up, coming up very soon TBR. So we'll start over there and then we'll work our way over to the big bookshelf. Okay, so this little table that is sort of beside my TV section houses a lot of random things. There's a Switch, games, photos, a bunch of bookmarks and bookish things in this little tin, some random things inside of this. But this little area right down here is where I put up my next on the TBR books, and then up on the top is where I keep track of all the books that I've read within that month, just if you're curious. But down here on my immediate TBR, there's a mix of some genres, so I'll just show you the thrillers very quickly. First up, we have The Other People by CJ Tudor. I've been making my way through CJ Tudor's backlist, and this will be the final one that I have to catch up on to finish all of her books. I'm not really entirely sure what this one's about. I just like CJ Tudor as an author, so I was picking up the rest of their books. It gives me some kind of weird creepy vibes because in the synopsis it's talking about who the other people are, and it sounds like they're sort of vigilantes, but it also sounds like they could be aliens. So I don't know, it really could go either way. This one has something to do with a dad who loses his daughter. He sees her get taken in the back of a car and get driven away by someone, and then that haunts him for the rest of his life, and he still tries to find her. He interacts with other people. Not totally sure. I've heard kind of mixed things on this, but either way I wanted to check out CJ Tudor stuff, so going to be reading this one very soon. Next up, we've got The Book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James. This was a book of the month pick for this month, and I will be doing an exclusive reading vlog dedicated to this book that I'm going to be premiering. It's going to be sort of like a community buddy read where I'm premiering the vlog so that if you have read this book as well, we can chat about it while you're watching the vlog. So that'll be coming at the end of March, so make sure to keep an eye out for that one. I don't totally remember everything about what this one is about, but I have read from Simone St. James in the past, and she has a tendency to write paranormal mystery thrillers with two points of view, and usually one point of view is set in the past as well, which I think is exactly the setup for this one. You're following a timeline in 1977 and then a timeline in 2017. The blurb at the top of this one says, "A true crime blogger gets more than she bargained for while interviewing the woman acquitted of two cold case slayings in this chilling new novel from the best-selling author of The Sundown Motel." So I'm really excited for this one. I've heard really good reviews so far, and you will be seeing a reading vlog of this one very soon. Next up, we have a book that I don't really know what to classify it as. I'm not sure if it's a thriller. The blurb on the inside calls it a modern gothic, but I don't necessarily think it's a horror book either. So I'm just gonna throw it in here, but if it's not a thriller, don't blame me. But that is the book Yes Daddy by Jonathan Parks Ramage. This is a book that I haven't heard too much about, but the few people that I've heard talk about this book really seem to love it. In the story, you're following this guy who moves to New York City and he really wants to be a successful playwright. Then he ends up meeting this guy who is a successful playwright already. He thinks it's going to be a stepping stone to his success. They start hanging out. The other guy invites his young lover over. I'm not really sure. I think it has something to do with obsession. It sounds like a cat and mouse maybe type story. It says it is riveting, unpredictable, and compulsively readable, an exploration of class, power dynamics, and the nuances of victimhood and complicity. It burns with weight and clarity and offers hope that stories may hold the key to our healing. It's also a rather short book, so I'm really excited for this one. Oh, and I got this one off of Pango Books, and that's the first time I've ever shot from Pango Books. I got it for like $8. Pango Books is amazing. Highly recommend it. Absolutely no way sponsored or an ad. It is just a really great place to buy books. Next up, we have Ace of Spades, and this is a YA thriller slash horror that I know a ton of of people love. It was marketed as Get Out meets Gossip Girl. There is a blackmailing plot, and I have only heard the best things. I have put this on my TBR every single month this year, and I just haven't gotten around to it yet because it is a little bit longer, and so other things just keep getting pushed around, but I absolutely want to get to this one so soon because I just think it's going to be so good. And that's really it for the thrillers that were over here at the top of my TBR. I try to keep this pretty limited, and only about like 8 or 10 books are ever sitting over here at a time, and like half of them were thrillers. So let's go on over to the big bookshelf and we'll look at the rest of the thrillers that I own. All right, so first we'll start up here where there are some paperback thrillers. I like to put the paperbacks up higher and the hardbacks down lower because, you know, gravity. I do not want this bookshelf to fall over on me one day. But let's see what we have up here. The first one is Perfect Days by Rafael Montes. This is a book that I haven't heard too much about, but when I do hear things about it, I hear really good things about it. And I saw it making the rounds again recently around Valentine's Day because I guess it has something to do with a couple in some way, but it's like dark and a thriller, and it was recommendations around like dark thrillers or like couples who kill people and a bunch of books in that category. And this one I saw getting recommended, which isn't necessarily what I thought this was going to be about. This is what the blurb at the top says. A twisted young medical student kidnaps the girl of his dreams and embarks on a dark and delirious road trip across Brazil in the English language debut of Brazil's most celebrated young crime writer. Well, that sounds really good, and this has been sitting here a long time. That's what I like doing about these videos, is it makes me remember what these books are about and why they're on my TBR, and then I get excited for them again. This book I've owned for years. I actually didn't pick this book out myself. I actually, right around when I first started my booktube, so around like the summer of 2020, I was going to do a reading vlog of that TBR service, picking the books that I read and do a reading vlog around it. I did end up doing the service. They did pick a couple books out for me. This was one of them. The other two books, I don't remember what they were at all, but I was not interested in them, and so I just ended up scrapping the vlog idea, and I haven't read any of the books yet. But this is the one that I decided to keep around because I did think it actually sounded pretty interesting. I just keep forgetting about it, and people don't really talk about it a lot, so I don't think about it a lot, but this sounds pretty good, and it's pretty short. So this one might be moving its way over to the other shelf soon. Next up, we have Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris. As you can see, this was a bargain price book that I got for $4.97. This is just one of those books on BookTube that people have just talked about for years. People are still reading it. I've never read it. I've only read one thing from B.A. Paris before, and that was the book The Therapist, and I thought it was okay. It was a pretty decent time, so I do definitely want to get to this one, although I have heard that it's not super thrilling. It's more of like a suspense type story, but I don't know. I just want to see what all the buzz is about. As far as I know, I'm pretty sure this is just about a married couple where it's an abusive husband, and it's all about what happens behind closed doors. I am finding recently that I don't really like to read about abusive husbands or just abusive men in general, so this one may actually not be for me, but I still want to give it a try. And finally, the last thriller we have up here is A Stranger on the Beach by Michelle Campbell. This is another bargain book that I got from Books A Million for $5.97. Got a couple bargain books when I was back home for Christmas because there's a Books A Million there and they've got great bargain deals, so picked a couple thrillers up around that time. It sounds like this one is about this woman who's kind of unhappy in her marriage. She ends up having a little bit of a fling with some stranger she meets on the beach, and then he becomes obsessed with her. So kind of sounds like Every Value Break by Peter Swanson, which I absolutely loved. So hopefully I love this one just as much. All right, now working our way down to the next shelf, which includes a blend of fantasy and thrillers and literary, and it's just sort of all over the place. First up, we have Recursion by Blake Crouch. This is a Book of the Month copy that I've had for a very long time. It is a sci-fi thriller. I don't know much about it. I've had it for so long. I don't actually think I'm interested in this anymore. I've considered unhauling it many a times. So let me know what you think. Do you think this book's really worth reading? Do you think I'm going to enjoy it? Do you think it is worth my time? Let me know. Another sci-fi thriller I have is Hummingbird Salamander by Jeff Vandermeer. I've never read from Jeff Vandermeer before, but when I saw this book was coming out last year, I thought the premise sounded very intriguing. There's like secret codes and agents and climate change and maybe different dimensions or time travel or something. I'm not totally sure anymore because it's been a while since I read the synopsis, but I thought this one sounded really, really cool. And then it got really, really bad reviews. And this is like one of the lowest rated books on my TBR. So I've been very hesitant to pick it up because of that. I'm still going to try it eventually. It's just not one that I get excited about anymore. And then next up we have Apples Never Fall by Liane Moriarty. I think this one might be more of a mystery, but I don't know. It's Liane Moriarty. She writes mystery thrillers, so it's going to be included in this category. This one kind of reminds me of Not a Happy Family by Sherry Lapina, just from reading the synopsis. You're following a family, the Delaney family. They have 4 children. The parents have been married for 50 years, and they've just finally sold their famed tennis academy, and then they think they're gonna retire, but they're really miserable. And then the mom ends up going missing, and I guess everyone seems a little bit suspicious. This one's a chunker. It is like over 400 pages. It's gonna take a long time to read, but I do like Leah Moriarty's stuff. At least I used to back when I used to read her stuff many years ago. We'll see if it's still my style, but I did want to check this one out. And now we'll go down one shelf below. So the further down you go on this bookshelf, the more likely it is that I've read the books. I try to keep the bottoms to be read, and I'm moving books around as I read them. So it's kind of a mix down here. More of these books I've read than I haven't read, but pretty much this stack, and then these books are the unread ones that are on the bottom here. First up, we have A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This is a YA mystery thriller that is the start of a trilogy, and everyone tells me to read this book. I know it's gonna be so good. I just haven't been in the mood to commit to a series yet. I know as soon as I read it, if I like it, I'm going to want to read the whole series, or else I'll never read the other books if I don't get on it right away. So I'm just waiting for the right moment, but I know this is gonna be really good. I'm super excited to read it and see what all the hype is about. But yeah, I just haven't found the time yet. Next up, we have The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. This is another one that I'm super excited for. I've actually prioritized this on my TBR earlier in the year, and then I just ended up moving things around, but it is one that I want to get to rather soon. In the story, you're following this senior community and these friends who get together and they try to solve mysteries and crimes together. And then there is something that happens in their community. I don't know if someone ends up dead or missing or what it is, but then they have to end up coming together to try to solve a real life crime. And I've just heard it's really like wholesome and fun and entertaining, and I'm super excited to check this one out. Next up, we have My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downing. This is the only Samantha Downing book that I have not read yet. It is about a couple who kill people. I've heard it's amazing. I feel like this is usually people's favorite Samantha Downing book. This was her first book. I really want to read it. I don't know when I'm going to get around to it. It's kind of been on my shelves for a while, but one of these days we'll get around to it. Next up, we have Hostage by Claire McIntosh. I've never read from this author before, but this sounds like a really high action, fast-paced thriller that I would enjoy. It is set on an airplane, and it says you can save hundreds of lives or the one that matters most. In this story, you're following this flight attendant named Mina who is on a plane. She's trying to put some distance between herself and the secrets that are devastating her marriage and burdening her already troubled 5-year-old daughter. And then she receives a note that says the following instructions will save your daughter's life. She doesn't know who it came from, but it's clearly someone on the plane, and no matter what choice she makes next, someone on her plane wants to ensure it never reaches its destination. There are 20 hours between London and Sydney, 20 hours to make an impossible choice for everyone on board. With hundreds of lives in your hands, could you sacrifice the one you love most? So basically she gets the decision to either save her daughter or to save everyone else on the plane, and that sounds really intense and really interesting, so I definitely want to get to this one pretty soon. Next up, we have The Chain by Adria McKinty. This is another one that is super fast-paced and high stakes from what I understand. I've been thinking about doing a reading vlog with these books, this one, Hostage, and maybe another book. I don't really know what I would call it, like reading fast-paced thrillers, but it's something that's kind of been on my mind. So if you have any ideas for that, let me know. But this story has something to do with like children getting abducted, and then to save your child, you have to abduct someone else's child, and then it like moves down the chain. So you have to keep having people commit crimes to save your own child. So it's kind of another case of that impossible decision of how do you protect the people you love without becoming a terrible person yourself. But yeah, if you have any ideas for how to group these books together, let me know. Next up, we have Disappearing Earth by Julia Phillips. This is a book that's won a lot of prizes. I don't know much about it. I'm pretty sure it's set in somewhere like Russia, maybe the mountains. It looks pretty mountainous and snowy. And I think it has something to do with sisters, and one disappears. It says, spellbinding, moving, evoking a fascinating region on the other side of the world, this suspenseful and haunting story announces the debut of a profoundly gifted writer. So that doesn't give a lot of information, but it says it is about the bonds of family and community in a Russia unlike any we have seen before. I really haven't heard many people talk about this book, so I think that probably gives me a better chance to enjoy it because I have no expectations going into it, but definitely want to get to this one soon. Sounds like it'd be a good winter read. We're kind of moving out of winter, but maybe I will be able to get to it soon. I have been squatting and it's terribly uncomfortable, so we're gonna go a little lower so I can sit. Imagine if I tried to film like this. Okay, that's better. Next up, we have Marianne Lane and the Midnight Murder by T.A. Wilberg. This is another book that's gotten pretty bad reviews, so I've just kind of put it off for a while. It's more of a mystery, I think, than a thriller. There are underground tunnels in London where these people are kind of like vigilantes. Does vigilante mean what I think it means? I don't know if I'm using that word correctly. It's basically, in this story, it's people who are regular citizens, I think, who are helping stop crime. Is that what vigilante means, or does vigilante mean you're a criminal? I'm not sure. But yeah, this has something to do with someone getting murdered. It's a murder mystery, but I have yet to see a good review for it. So if you've read it and you like it, please let me know in the comments below so I will be excited to read this one again. Next up, we have Take Me Apart by Sarah Sliger. This is a book that has also been on my TBR for really, really long, probably longer than most books on my TBR. This might be one of the oldest books on my TBR in terms of how long I've owned the book. This one's kind of tricky to explain. I've started it before, apparently. I read the first chapter, so I must have done it for a try chapter video. But there is this famous photographer who died mysteriously at the height of her career, and that's what happened in the past. And then you're following an archivist who is going back through her things and kind of piecing together the mystery of what happened. So it sounds fascinating. I haven't heard many people talk about this one. The only person who I can remember talking about this is Kat from Paperback Dreams, and I remember she really liked it, and so that has made me want to pick it up. I just haven't yet. One of these days. Finally, a book you're gonna all tell me to unhaul and that it's not worth reading is Hairpin Bridge by Taylor Adams. At this point, I believe that this is just probably objectively a bad book because of how much criticism I've seen for it. I really don't think there's any chance for it to be redeemed. I really don't anticipate liking this, but I do want to give it a chance and see. I remember I've read the first chapter of this one before. I didn't feel any type of way about it really, but I don't know, people just complain about this one so much. It's about these two sisters. One of them ended up committing suicide off of a bridge. The other one is trying to figure out why her sister did that and piece together what was really going on in her life. I've read stories with that kind of setup before and liked that, so I don't know if it's the setup. I've heard people complain about a really long car chase scene that's like 100 pages long or something, so maybe it's just unrealistic. I don't know, but I do want to give it a try because I really loved No Exit by Taylor Adams, so I do want to try to read this one. And who knows, maybe I'll be the one person who actually likes it. So that is it for all of the thriller and mystery books on my TBR. Let me know which ones you are most excited to see me read and hear me talk about. Let me know in the comments below if there's any you want to see in reading vlogs, or that idea for like an action-packed thriller reading vlog that I'm still trying to piece together in my mind. And if you have made it to the end of this video, you can leave me a knife emoji in the comments down below to let me know, because that is the perfect emoji to pair with thrillers. Also, don't forget, if you do want to see all of the rest of the books on my TBR, for the most part, you can check out my 2 other videos that I've posted for all of the romance and horror books on my TBR that I will have linked down below. But that is it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!